AI is incredibly powerful, but all that power also creates this huge, new, and often kind of invisible attack surface. So today, we're going to break down exactly how these systems are targeted, and maybe more importantly, how we can start building a real defense against those threats.
Yeah, and this quote, it just hits the nail on the head, right? Securing AI isn't about playing catch up and just reacting to problems after the damage is already done. We absolutely need a proactive strategy. That means understanding the threats and building security in from the very, very beginning.
And to do that, we can use this really simple but powerful three-step framework. First, you got to know where you're vulnerable. Second, you need to understand what kind of attack you're actually facing. And third, you put the right defenses, what we call compensating controls, in place. This simple mindset is going to guide us through this whole explainer. Okay, so let's dive into our first category. Think of these as the attacks that happen right at the front door, the ones that manipulate the direct conversation you're having with the AI model itself. First up is something called prompt injection. The easiest way to think about this is like a hidden command. An attacker will craft their input in just the right way to trick the AI into completely ignoring its original programming and instead following a new, malicious set of orders. And this slide just lays it out so perfectly. On the left, you've got a totally normal request, but on the right, the attacker slips in a simple phrase like, ignore all previous instructions. And just like that, that one command completely hijacks the AI, turning a helpful tool into a massive security leak. Okay, so next up, we've got input manipulation. Now, this one's a lot more subtle than a direct command. Instead of overriding instructions, the attacker feeds the AI confusing or specially crafted data to exploit its blind spots, basically causing it to make mistakes or produce really skewed results. And this table here, it shows you exactly what that looks like in the wild. An attacker might use weird special characters to get around a content filter, or maybe send an absurdly long prompt hoping to crash the system. See? They aren't giving you orders. They're literally weaponizing the data itself to try and break the model. And that brings us to jailbreaking. This is pure social engineering, but against a machine. The goal here is to persuade the AI that its safety rules, its whole defined persona, well, they just don't apply in this one special situation that the attacker is making up. So here's the really clever part of the attacker's tactic. They're not just overriding instructions. No, they're creating a whole pretext. By saying things like, oh, it's just a simulation, or let's roleplay. They convince the model to step outside its programming, which effectively lets them bypass its own safety alignment. All right, let's move on to our next section and see how this all builds on the last one. Now we're going to look at attacks that don't just trick the model's core logic, but instead they go after the safety systems and policies that are built around it. This is what we call circumventing AI guardrails. So if jailbreaking is about tricking the AI with a clever story, this is more like methodically rattling every single lock on the door until one of them finally gives way. It's a systematic effort to find and exploit any loophole in that safety net. And this right here is exactly why a defense-in-depth strategy is so critical. You need an input filter to scan what the user is asking, and you need an output filter to scan what the AI is about to say. Any single layer can probably be bypassed. Multiple layers are much harder to beat. Now, let's talk about a much stealthier, long-term kind of attack. Introducing bias. With this one, the goal isn't a single bad output, but to slowly, quietly corrupt the AI's entire worldview. And this is usually done by poisoning its training data or manipulating its feedback, essentially teaching it to favor certain outcomes over others. This chart, wow, it makes the danger so incredibly clear. Before the attack, the AI's loan decisions are fair. But after its data has been subtly poisoned over time, look at that. Its approval rate for one group just plummets. This is how a stealthy bias attack can lead to real-world discriminatory harm. Okay, for our final section, we're going to zoom out a bit, because the biggest risks often aren't in the AI model itself, but in this huge ecosystem of tools, plugins, and data it connects to. And when those connections are weak, they become a massive liability. This is where we see what are called app integration attacks. The goal isn't just to get a bad response from the AI, it's to trick the AI into using its authorized tools, like a CRM or an admin panel, to perform a malicious action for the attacker. I mean, this slide is the perfect demonstration.
A user types a simple plain English request like disable MFA for this account. The AI, just trying to be helpful, translates that into a direct high-impact system command. The AI basically becomes an unwitting accomplice, turning a simple chat into a major security incident. So, the crucial point to understand is this. An AI doesn't see a plugin as some separate, untrusted thing. It sees it as a trusted extension of its own capabilities. That means any vulnerability in that plugin is a direct vulnerability for the entire AI system. And this shows us exactly what to do about it. An insecure plugin just blindly trusts whatever the AI sends its way. A secure plugin, on the other hand, operates on a zero-trust model. It validates every single input and enforces its own permissions, refusing to do anything if the underlying user doesn't have the right to do it. And finally, we have AI supply chain attacks. This is kind of like building a house with faulty materials you bought from a supplier. The attack doesn't target your final application, but the foundational components you use to build it. The pre-trained models, the open source libraries, or the datasets you downloaded. This timeline really shows you just how insidious these attacks can be. The vulnerability gets introduced way back when a dataset is poisoned. It then lies dormant as it's used to train a model, and it only becomes active once the compromised system is in production and an attacker uses some kind of secret trigger. The damage is done long before you ever see a symptom. So after seeing all of this, the big question is, how do we actually defend ourselves? Well, it's not about finding one single silver bullet. The key takeaway here is that we need a comprehensive, multi-layered defensive mindset. So let's just quickly run through the core defensive principles. We need guardrails on both inputs and outputs. Our tools have to have the absolute minimum privileges they need to function, and nothing more. A human being has to approve high-stakes actions. We need to know exactly what's in our software supply chain. And above all else, we have to treat every single piece of data as untrusted. And really, that leaves us all with one final thought to chew on. AI is increasingly becoming the central brain for most critical systems. The question we all need to answer is whether the security architecture we're building around it is creating something truly resilient or something dangerously fragile.